These testimonials are representative of my or our experiences, but the exact results and experience will be unique and individual to each person. The information provided herein is not medical advice and is not intended to substitute for the advice of your personal physician or other healthcare providers. Welcome to The Beautiful Bag. This is your host, LeeAnne Hayden, cancer survivor, and more importantly, ostomy lifer. Each and every week, I'm going to be bringing a special guest or some inspiration for you and a few little stories along the way so that you can learn what life is like for us to be living in an ostomy and why we all think it's a beautiful bag. So listen in and let's get started. Well, hello, everybody, and welcome to this week's The Beautiful Bag podcast. I am your host, LeeAnne Hayden, and it is so great to have you here this week, especially because, guys and girls, this is our 100th episode. Can you believe it? I am so thrilled, and I just want to take a minute to say thank you all so very much for continuing to listen, for being by my side, being by my guest sides for the last two years, as we've had 100 episodes. And, looking back over the last couple of years in these 100 episodes, I was going back and looking at some notes, and there has been 40 solo episodes of me. You're welcome. And there's been 60 guests on this show. So I just want to take a minute to thank every single one of those guests for stepping into their power and joining us here and sharing their stories. The vulnerability with everyone, with what they share here, is just, I'm speechless half the time. And it's very rare for me to be speechless, but half the time I am truly left speechless because I look back at the reason why I'm in an ostomy, and I'm in an ostomy because I had cancer. I had a very rare sarcoma tumor that was in my pelvic floor. And when they went to take the tumor out, they had to take enough margin to make sure they got all the cancer. So they took my rectal muscles with it. So that left me in a colostomy bag. Whereas, and again, I had cancer. I didn't have to go through chemo. I didn't have to go through radiation. That wasn't going to work with what I had for cancer anyways. But I just look at the fact of, I listen to these stories and I feel so blessed with my journey and with our journeys. And again, with just everybody sharing, because we've had people on this show who they're in their ostomies because of cancer or Crohn's and colitis, huge now. I mean, it's been huge with Crohn's and colitis. Or they have, we've had someone who is a veteran who was in the army and got a bacterial infection, April, when she was overseas and came back, and it created a flare, and she ended up in an ostomy, an ileostomy because of that. And I mean, then we had JD who was in a motorcycle accident, and he is an amputee and he's in, an ostomy. And so I look at those stories and the fight and the struggle and the challenge and the adversity and everything that we've overcome, that I've listened to, like the stories of you overcoming, the reason why you're in an ostomy, or overcoming accidents, or overcoming leaks, or overcoming mishaps in intimacy. We've had some of the people share those stories too. It really makes me say, what this really is coming from people's strengths, right? It makes us stronger. And I really, truly believe that we've all been put on this planet for a mission, for a reason. We don't know what it is. And sometimes we're like, well, I didn't sign up for this reason, but, here I am. And you're out there and you're sharing your story and it's getting the word out. So I have to put so much praise behind all of it. For all of you who listen to this podcast and to brighten someone's day, or to understand. We have a lot of listeners who just listen to this podcast to understand what people go through who are in ostomies, you know? So I just want to say thank you. Thank you to every single person for listening and sharing their stories. All right. And being a part of this community, because we're growing a huge community with it. And then, you know, when I think about looking at some of the things that we've talked about, you know, we've had people in all ranges, all age ranges, all races. Guys, we've had people who have had their ostomies since they were 3 years old to, you know, in their 50s. And I'm going to tell you, the majority of people that I've spoken with are in their early 30s. That's the majority of it. You know, when we look back in time, people, you only considered somebody in an ostomy, you know, whether it's an ileostomy, colostomy, urostomy, whichever, somebody was in an ostomy, they were typically someone older, right? It was the older demographics that had, and most times it was because of cancer. But with a lot of Crohn's and colitis and people having flares and gut issues now, and cancer doesn't discriminate. So we've had a lot of people coming to us and being on the show who are all ages. You know, I've had people who are 18 all the way to 50 plus years old. And again, the average age for people in ostomies, from what I'm seeing and what we're researching, right, or what I'm hearing, and people who have come forward are in their early 30s. And the struggles that people have to go through. And, you know, I'm thinking about people like Colin Jarvis. If you don't know him, you should. You know, Colin he was training, he was younger. He was, you know, in his late teens, he was training to be in the Olympics, like literally training to be in the Olympics, right? To be an Olympic runner. He was a runner. And he ends up in an ostomy, having to go through all these surgeries. So, you know, that dream of him doing that disappeared. However, he has overcome that. He runs marathons all the time. And he's also co-owner of Stealth Belt, you know? So, and if you don't know what Stealth Belt is, you should go check that out too, because it's a great product to hold you all together. There's a little plug for that. But I mean, you have stories like that. And then you have stories like Geraldine Taylor, who, you know, had cancer at the age of 3 and ended up in a colostomy and a urostomy for her entire life. I mean, she's in her 50s now, early 50s. I will say that, early 50s now. And she's had a dual ostomy her entire life. And guys and girls, she models. She models. She decided she wanted to become a model, right? Talk about getting rid of the stigma around being in an ostomy right there, right? And those are just a couple of examples. I mean, I have 60, and if I could share every single person's story here, I would, but then we'd have 60 hours of stories. And you don't need 60 hours of stories. You can go back in this podcast. You can go back and listen to the ones that resonate with you. We've had people who have had shared stories of dealing and overcoming leaks. We've had stories of people becoming pregnant, right? And being pregnant in their ostomies and having children and living a fantastic life. We've had people talk about intimacy and the struggle through the intimacy, whether they were married at the time, you know, they were married when they got their ostomy and it was a challenge for their spouse, and how they overcame that and they worked through that struggle, or they're young and single and they were dating and what that was like. You know, we've had so many different stories, you know, how to travel, what's happened when you go get on an airplane, what happened if you have a leak on a plane or a leak in your car or you're in public. I mean, I've even shared personal stories of that, you know, how do you overcome those things? And so there's been so many stories shared, so many things overcome over these last couple of years. I've grown as a person personally. And again, I'm going to just keep thanking everybody because I am completely a different person than I was 2 years ago. I understand a lot of things a lot better myself. And one more thing I wanted to mention, I mean, life changes, right? When you decide to do something and you decide to embrace something, like we've embraced our ostomies and you want to do something with this. I created this podcast not out of the blue. I knew that there was something that needed to be done. I knew that there was a way that our messages needed to come out even more. And we have all these people on social media now, on especially Instagram and TikTok, just out there sharing their journeys, which is amazing, amazing, amazing. And this was just another platform that I thought would be useful for people who maybe want to listen to stories when they're in the car or learn, and it came to be 2+ years ago. And the name, The Beautiful Bag, I named it because I woke up one morning, and after I prayed and said, what should I name this? I don't know what to name this. I woke up one morning and I heard the voice say, The Beautiful Bag. And it is a beautiful bag because it has given us a second chance in life. And not everybody gets that. Not everybody gets that. So even though we have to deal with things like leaks, and even though we're afraid to leave the house, some people are afraid to leave their homes or to travel or to do things, we got that second chance in life. And you need to know you're not alone. We're here. There's all of us. There's so many of us here. And the other thing that has come about with this podcast is my partnership with Hollister Inc. I have to give them a huge shout out because without this podcast, they found me on social media, right? So Alina found me on social media, reached out, and she said, we love what you do for the community. And my partnership formed with them, and my partnership is going into its 3rd year, which is amazing. And I'm so grateful for it because it wasn't a direction my life was going in the beginning. This wasn't where I thought I would be. And I'm loving where I am. It's a wonderful thing. And I keep saying today, and I don't know why. Usually I'm pretty steady with my words, but I think it's because this is the 100th episode and there's been lives changed. And there has been times over the couple of years where I'm like, oh, is this enough? Am I done? Have we told enough stories? Is this really does this really matter? Is it really making a difference? Because all I want to do is make a difference and help people. And I get an email from someone out there, like one of you would email me and say, thank you so much, LeeAnne, for this podcast. I listened to it on my ride to work. Or this guy, or Dave sent me an email saying, I'm a big burly dude in North Carolina driving my truck and crying. And if you see me doing that, it's because I'm listening to this podcast and realizing I'm not alone. And every time someone sends me an email or tags me in something because they listen to a podcast on social media and they're sharing it out there and they're tagging me in it, guys, I love that. So please continue to do that because it means so much to me. It makes me say, okay, I need to do more. We need more stories. We need more people talking. We need more people sharing. That being said, if you know anyone or you yourself want to share your story, go over to my website, LeeAnneHayden.com, send me an email and, connect with me and we'll make it happen. We will absolutely make it happen. So, I just wanted to take this week, just as a huge, huge thank you, a huge gratitude, I am so grateful for every single one of you. And I just want to thank you so much for making this podcast so fantastic. And just spreading the word for it. So I love you guys. Next week, I will be coming to you with another special guest. And again, if you know anybody who wants to share a story or you yourself want to share a story, please reach out and let me know. I would love to have you on here. All right. We'll talk again soon. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for joining us this week. If you enjoyed this podcast, get the behind the scenes at LeeAnneHayden.com/ostomy updates. And also, if you found this episode encouraging, please screenshot it and share it on Instagram. And don't forget to tag me and also the person who was on the episode with me. I occasionally will do special gifts for anyone who does do a screenshot and share it on Instagram or in your stories. Also, lastly, please go to Apple or Google, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast to keep up with them every single week. I enjoy you guys. Thank you so much for being here.